everyone back to another episode of Digitalk Architects. Here with us today we have Hillary Lyons from Syntropy. Hi Hillary, how are you? Thanks for coming on the show.
Hello, I'm doing well. Thank you, Carolina.
Very good. Hillary, tell us about yourself, who you are, what you do.
Sure. I am a marketing professional and more recently a founder. It feels scary to say, but also exciting. I have been marketing for 13 years, both in-house with enterprises, startups, and then the past 6 freelancing full-time. About 5 years ago, I embarked on creating my own marketing micro agency, and then 6 months ago, reason I call myself a founder, we underwent a major pivot and are relaunching as an AI marketing agency, specifically focused on building adaptive AI marketing tools and systems for B2B startups.
Awesome. So describe to us, just like you pivot from a traditional marketing agency to an AI powered marketing agency for SaaS. What does that look like? Drove you to pivot into, I know the answer, but let's tell everybody what drove you to pivot into the AI, and then, we can, listen to you and your story. Cause I have a similar story. So we'll find synergies along the way.
Yeah. No, happy to. I've always been a tech enthusiast. I've always been an early adopter. I love experimenting with new tools. As I said, I'd worked with startups in the past as an in-house marketing professional. But when ChatGPT launched, I was just so impressed. I immediately saw the potential for, while most people were fixated on the potential time or cost savings, the ability to produce more content with fewer people, I saw the potential for brand coherence, to create a single source of truth for your brand narrative, your brand messaging that kept everyone aligned. Because, as you well know, marketing is such a game of telephone. I talk to the founder who has ideas about how he wants to portray his company, and then I convey that to a graphic designer, and I convey that to a web designer, and they have their own biases and experiences. And so it's easy for the same message, even communicated well, to get lost in that game of telephone. And so about 2 years ago, I started using ChatGPT and especially custom GPTs to develop branded bots, or toolmates as I call them, for my clients. At first, this was just an internal initiative. I wanted to see how I could use AI tools to produce better quality on-brand content for my clients more seamlessly. Not faster, but at least get that first draft done faster so we could spend more time polishing those outputs, making them really sing. And in the past 6 months, starting a year ago, I realized that there are going to be job disruptions, market changes as people seek to replace humans with AI, which I think is a misguided path, but that to future-proof myself and my own business, I should focus on building these custom tools, empowering people to use these tools more effectively. Because anyone can use AI to produce AI slop, but to produce something that really sounds like you is a much more complex process. There has to be a lot of intention and proper data orchestration to make your unique organizational intelligence, all of the context about your business, more legible, accessible, actionable to that AI. So that was the motive behind my pivot. And I'm still very much working out how to productize or future-proof these services when the AI tools are changing all the time. But it's been a really exciting learning process.
Very good. So on that note, how has your approach to branding specifically evolved as, all these AI tools disrupt the traditional workflow of what you were doing prior to and what you're doing now?
Yeah, it's fascinating because I think AI actually, for that very reason I expressed, it's the context you give the AI that makes the output actually sound like you. AI is forcing us, urging people to go back to the foundation of good brand marketing, of good public relations. Even things like GEO are prioritizing better PR practices. That's generative engine optimization, or optimizing for AI visibility, LLMs and such. So if all your competitors are all using the same AI tools, the same LLMs to create the same kind of content for the same channels as you are without much context, you're all going to sound the same. So what I have been urging my clients to do is to actually spend more time on the strategy and the brand development to really pin down the things that were formerly thought of as nice to have, your values, your voice and tone guidelines, things that were historically deprioritized as more fluffy or not translating to direct ROI, I think are now more critical than ever, because that clarity of voice and vision is what will empower you to leverage AI to set yourself apart rather than blend into the same sea of your competitors.
Yeah. So as you know, here, Digital Architects, we specialize in strategic growth for B2B. We're kind of in a similar business. But what do you see as a major messaging mistake for these SaaS startups when they're scaling? And how do you use AI to help them avoid sort of those mistakes, especially with the AI implementation? And like you said, right, like it's generic, right? So how do you help them improve that?
Yeah, it's tough because I do work with a lot of early stage startups who they might have a clear idea of what their product is, what their brand is, but they haven't been battle tested. They don't have enough customer data to see what really resonates with people and what does not. But I do my best to try and document and then structure as much data, both internally and externally, as we can gather, analyzing customer interview transcripts and conducting focus group research and market research, whatever we can do to understand in the customer's own words what value this product or service provides, why they choose this brand over competitors, because that's using your own customer's language to craft messaging that will resonate with your customers is a much faster, easier path to success than just throwing spaghetti at the wall and A/B testing and trying to see what sticks. So I try to start with customer data. I've actually built a custom GPT or toolmate that I use to mine customer interviews and surface sticky phrases, pain points, potential testimonials, and then use that to inform our brand strategy and messaging. In the absence of that kind of customer data, I do a lot of interviews with internal stakeholders. I try to understand in my clients' own words why they started this startup, why they built this product, what is so energizing and exciting to them about it. I think the big mistake startups make is that they focus so much on features. They just yammer on about features, or even, they put so much weight on case studies and focus on the quantitative metrics, which are of course important, but they don't paint a picture of the transformation. They don't describe how this product changed their customers' life or workflows, or those emotional benefits that, as much as we like to think we're reasonable, rational creatures, we're still very emotion driven, and you need to
100%.
Yeah, you need to engage people.
That's why marketers always kind of tell you figure out the pain points, right? Because if you address the pain points, the emotional side of it, then everything else kind of follows, including the features and but ultimately for most people, it's how are you helping me fix this pain point, right? And so the message should always be solution based instead of feature based. And I agree, a lot of but we do all these things that are so great. I'm like, yeah, but unless you're telling them how that all those things are fixing that one pain they have, they don't care, right? And it depends on the business that pain point. Every business's pain point is different, or at least every business owner or manager or whoever you're talking to, right? And depending on the business, the size of that pain point, it's much bigger or smaller depending, of course.
And it's hard. Another mistake I see startups make is that they try to tell too many stories at once. They try to cram every pain point and every transformation story onto the homepage, and our human brains can only digest so much information at a time, and repetition is actually a really good thing. I see less so on websites, but across your content marketing strategy. I urge people to remember that not every follower, fan, customer is going to read every single post. So you need to be able to repeat the same message in countless different creative ways so it starts to sink in so people can internalize it. If you overload your homepage with the 500 use cases that are possible with your platform, you're going to lose people immediately because that sounds like work to read 500 different use cases.
Do you get a lot of pushback when you try to introduce, these, you call them toolmates or GPTs or technology into, SaaS companies? They're a little bit more, I don't know, hesitant. And it's weird because they're technology companies, but
Yeah.
but is there pushback?
Somewhat. So early on, I guess 2023, 2024, I did talk openly with some clients about my use of AI to create their content because I wanted to loop them into the process and start tracking metrics, understand if these tools were actually producing better results or streamlining their workflows. And there was initial fear in those earlier days about data privacy and if I'm uploading documents to this custom GPT, what does OpenAI do with that? Is that information discoverable to anybody else, to potential competitors?
Mm-hmm.
There were data privacy concerns, and we did our best to identify which documents were too risky and which were acceptable for brand coherence training purposes only.
Mm-hmm.
More recently, I'd say that it's the opposite problem. I have a lot of startup clients who want to try every new AI tool or want me to go and build an AI agent thing. And I have to caution them because I think with all AI tools, 80% of the setup work is not actually using the tool itself, just has to happen in conversation with other humans. You have to fix your workflows, standardize your processes, identify your bottlenecks. You have to rebuild your system so that you can plug the AI in without breaking it to some degree. And I urge that we spend more time in that initial planning phase and less time throwing all kinds of AI tools, bells and whistles at it, because that's just going to create more chaos. It'll scale more mess rather than provide more clarity through automation.
So you're talking about, these startup companies and, well, are they all startups, by the way? Or it's a combination?
I have a VC firm client at the moment. I got my start in food and wine marketing, actually. So I still
Okay.
have occasional food and wine brands. I can't say no to a fun project. I still work with some nonprofits. So the bulk of my clientele are in tech, and then most of those are also startups, but I also have the oddball
A
client in there.
mix.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're talking about how they, now it's kind of a little bit of the opposite problem of they want to use all of the technology.
Yeah.
But I know so you're talking about like the process, the workflows, which I'm familiar with. But let's talk a little bit about, because I know when you and I started talking, you mentioned that you're using NAN, Zapier, Notion. I think those are the ones I remember you mentioning. When you take your, process, building the workflows, and you have to do that human insight part of the planning, and then the automation that goes behind the scenes to get all of it up and working. What is one example in that journey where the final product, right, produced sort of like an unexpected result or something that surprised you and or the client?
That's a really good question. I hesitatingly took on a project recently because I wasn't sure it could be done. But I had a client come to me, they're in fintech, and they wanted to create a fact checker GPT, custom GPT that would check all claims made in a given piece of content, a blog, a paper, whatever, and flag any claims that were untrue, provide sources for those that were verified to be accurate. And LLMs are notorious liars. They hallucinate.
It's
They're not
true.
designed for accuracy. So I was very
They're
upfront
getting
at this.
better though. They're getting better.
They are. They're getting much better.
They're lying a little less.
And actually, through this process, I picked up some new best practices that I apply to reduce hallucinations across the board. But, I told them up front that I wasn't positive we could deliver on this, but I would do my best, that I'm sure I could at least help streamline that workflow somewhat to make the CFP's, the certified financial planner's job easier. And so we did a few interviews. I sent them a questionnaire. I really broke it down, even micro decisions that might not be documented in an SOP, like why would you choose this statistic over this statistic? Trying to get into their human decision-making processes and create hierarchies for which kinds of sources they want to prioritize and which they never want to cite, and just documenting all of these things that they existed in between their ears, but they hadn't put down on paper yet necessarily. And so we went through this thorough discovery phase. I drafted this custom GPT. My typical process, I share that GPT then with the client to use. I still build it within my account, but as a sort of sandbox. And then I share it with the client for them to use. And over the course of 2 to 4 weeks, they document feedback. They take screenshots of good and bad outputs. They note which rules it might be consistently breaking or deviating from, what it adheres to well. And then I synthesize all that knowledge into all that like firsthand experience. It's not like these best practices exist elsewhere because it's so custom to their exact process. And so then I consolidate those insights into just revise the instructions to give them a better output. And so far, at least, it seems to be saving their team half the time. It now takes half as much time to fact check these documents, these pieces of content. But more impressively, it was when I gave the GPT specific fallback behavior. So if you don't know the answer to something, do X, Y, Z, or bracket the claim in question and flag it for extra review or something. It was much more accurate. If I give it an option besides lying to me, if I tell it you can say I don't know, it much more reliably communicates its limitations.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So if you ask it to fact check something and you basically tell them if you don't know the answer, just say you don't know.
Yeah.
Then it's less likely to hallucinate.
Yes.
Absolutely. I didn't know that. That's actually really good information. Food for thought.
Fact checking, I think the way we went about it, if I recall correctly, is you identify each claim, we give it a thorough list, we upload a document to the knowledge base of various types of claims, samples of good claims and bad claims, of verified claims and unverified, how to respond to each. But we would have the fact checker go for each claim, check 3 different sources, the credibility and accuracy of each source, and then take the weighted average for all sources for a given claim and give the final reviewer a confidence score. We feel 95% confident that this claim is accurate. Here are the sources that I cited. And so it's more like giving that fact checker a bibliography. They, of course, still advise a human click through all those links, verify it's correct, guidance. But it's dramatically reduced that research time.
Awesome. Actually, that's really, really interesting information.
Yeah, and I never would have.
It's a good application.
To make one myself because I would have assumed that GPT is too much of a liar, but I learned something new.
There you go. All right. So, sort of on the same note, but slightly different question here. You frequently, and I know you and I talked about this, but you advocate about moving from what you called duct taping tools together to create scalable solution systems, specifically in marketing. But I'm sure this applies to just systems in general. For early stage founders and business owners listening, what are the first steps they should take to move from sort of like this chaos to a more clear system?
Yeah, I guess I know a mistake that I was making and that I see a lot of other founders fall into is we get on this content treadmill. We think that because our competitors are posting here, there, and everywhere that we have to do the same. And we think of all the things we need to do next, all the tasks where we should add to our list, as opposed to what is holding us back from doing more now. What are the actual constraints or roadblocks? And it's interesting in this new era of AI because the roadblock used to be creation, execution. Now it's faster, easier than ever to produce content at scale. But the actual bottleneck becomes strategic clarity. If you aren't sure on why you're doing what you're doing, or who you're creating that content for, what the next step action you're asking your reader to take is, then it doesn't matter how much content you create, you're not going to see the results that you want. You're not going to get closer to your objectives. So I urge people to think about what is currently constraining them, what decisions they keep putting off because it feels too intimidating, too monumental a task, and start there. Figure out how you can dissolve those roadblocks, because that will free up so much more bandwidth for all those tasks on your someday to-do list. I think also I know myself, I didn't build out my internal systems up until like a year ago. I finally upgraded to various tools. I finally moved out of just storing everything in my Google Drive to finding better content management, knowledge management systems, and syncing my team up. But it felt so scary for so long because I knew it was going to be a big task.
Can I ask you, actually, since we're there, tell us a little bit about what that was like, you know, because hey, listen, I am a business owner. I own an agency. So I know the struggle. We use Google Drive a lot. I mean, we have obviously other things but it is kind of like everything goes there.
It's easy to spiral control. Yeah.
It's so easy. So when you started the process, you know, tell us how that came about and sort of like what your solution to that problem was. Like what tools are you using now that you've built that system?
Sure. Yeah, it wasn't easy. It was painful at first. There were so many unknowns. I like order. I like structure. Syntropy means order from chaos. So it was incredibly daunting to look at this mess that my drive had become and figure out how I was supposed to make sense of it. I have to credit Mihail Isaac. She is a SaaS copywriter and has her own copywriting agency, courses, programs. I joined her program called Scale Tribe that is specifically geared towards solopreneurs, small agencies seeking to scale, seeking to build out the systems and scale with confidence and ease, not just like at a breakneck pace, but to do it in such a way that feels empowering and aligned. So having a course and having like homework and deliverables forced me to tackle it. So I needed that accountability. But secondarily, just realizing that I don't need to do it all at once, that I can start with one SOP, that I can create that I can test one new tool. Of course, as soon as I got started, I got real energized and went crazy. But it just helped I don't think I could have done as much as I have, I know I couldn't have done as much as I have, but I don't think I would have continued pushing through that friction and challenge without AI tools, because I could create one SOP using one template. And then next time, anytime I did any task, I could record a Zoom and talk through what I was doing and then give GPT that transcript and tell it to turn it into a SOP using my template. Or I could create one workflow and then ask a contractor to run through it and add their feedback. I guess realizing that I also didn't have to do it alone, that even though I am the agency founder, I don't have to mandate from the top down how things will be, that I can lean on my team and
Delegate.
my partners and my friends, my colleagues to offer their expertise. And it doesn't have to be so lonely, I guess, was one of the most empowering takeaways for me.
So in that process, give us an insight at what tools are you using now aside from the Google Drive, the monster?
Yes. Still need to figure out what I'm doing with that. There's so much good in there, and I like a lot of what we organize. But I think the biggest challenge for me there, even working with clients, I'm an exceptionally organized person. I love going into their drive and cleaning it up, but then they can't find everything because they didn't do the organization themselves. So the single best tool that I am so excited about and is probably going to replace a handful of other tools in my tech stack is Notion. I had heard of it before. I had never I maybe dabbled with it here and there, but I went in my freelancing days, I didn't have, I don't know, the knowledge base, the client database, whatever. I wasn't tracking things in that way where it made sense to build out custom dashboards. But I heard more and more people using it, especially when Notion AI came out. They added an AI layer on top of their
Yeah.
organizational software. It just became so apparent to me that all of the context management problems I was facing using LLMs, using Google Drive, could be solved if I put again, a significant amount of work into organizing my Notion workspace so that all of that data was structured and accessible to the AI. So I'm 6 months into that process. I've built out my CRM, my project database, my client portals, my project and task management, my internal knowledge base. Still messy, but Notion AI helps me. It can do anything that I can do in Notion. So if I know what I want something to look like, but I'm not sure what steps I need to do to get there, I can just ask Notion AI to do it for me, and it will build out a custom database. It'll connect my databases. And that's where that brand coherence, using my AI workspace as a single source of truth for my business, is so valuable, because now if I'm the one who attends most all client meetings, I'm the one initiating that game of telephone to delegate tasks to my contractors. But if anything is unclear, if they don't know where to find something, they don't need to click through a billion folders. They can ask Notion AI. They can just ask Notion AI to summarize the priorities and content topics for that client on a given month. And it does fairly reliably. I really appreciate how transparent they do. The AI displays its chain of thought reasoning. It links to any resources that it uses or cites, any pages that it creates. So you can really, at first I was afraid of letting the AI do anything because I was worried it would break this system I just spent so much time building. But I haven't had any issue that I couldn't just quickly reverse with the click of a button.
So basically, Notion is now your business brain.
Yes, absolutely.
In a sense. And then do you have it integrated with Google Drive, or do you keep them separate?
No, so I am keeping them functionally separate because I still find it easier to collaborate on Google Docs for long form content if I'm writing blogs or landing page copy or something. It's also, Notion is a little intimidating, and not, as I said, not all of my clients are techies. So I think Google Drive will be where I keep client deliverables and big collaborative documents and anything client facing, where Notion will be, my agency's business brain, my single source of truth, my operational home base. I'm still figuring out how I want to use that connection. I do find that Notion's retrieval from and linking to Google Drive is far better than any of the LLMs I've tried, even Gemini, oddly enough. I find that
Really?
Notion does a better job retrieving information from my Google Drive than Gemini does.
Interesting. Are you, I guess that the question there is, in your agency, are you guys Google centric, or that's just one of the many?
I think my goal is to be Notion centric. My goal is to put everything we possibly can in Notion. My client experience, or at least like client collaboration, will mostly happen in Google.
And well, okay, but your team, right? So they're using Notion. Are they also like a Google Workspace for email and everything else, or just the Google Drive for client facing handling?
Just the Google Drive. I do have a Google Workspace, but I don't know. I've just never been too impressed by Gemini, so I haven't felt motivated to put my eggs in that basket. I do pop in and test it on occasion. I'm a beta tester for Google Agent Space.
Okay.
And
Nice.
I still have faith in Google. I think they have the ecosystem. They're well positioned to really make these tools phenomenal, but I haven't seen comparable results yet.
The reason why I ask is, so we have a Google Drive, right? That hosts basically the client stuff, right? But our entire team works out of Microsoft, right? So we kind of, it's interesting actually when we talk about tools, because I like Microsoft for certain things, but not for others. So I don't like the way Microsoft does the sharing and the collaboration. It's very restrictive. It's very hard to handle unless you're already part of the internal team. With Google, it's a lot easier, right? But I like some of the internal tools, like the Outlook, the Teams for internal communication. I much rather Teams than Slack. So that's why I go that route.
It's
But
so hard because you gotta like pick and choose your battles, right?
I know so that's I'm always curious to see how everybody's handling it, because you know, you always learn something, but also it's like, am I doing, you know, there's not right and wrong, but it's more of like, is there anything else I could be doing for, you know, to improve my processes and whatever. And on your note of Notion, it's funny. I used Notion for a long time, loved it, and then we kind of went away from Notion because we were using this other project management software that kind of was fulfilling some of our internal needs better than Notion could. And then so I didn't really quite get to use their AI, because by the time we left, you know, and we stopped using Notion, was right about the time when they were introducing all the AI stuff. So I have not been able to use the Notion AI, the stuff that you're mentioning, because we, you know, kind of closed the account, and that was the end of Notion for us. And so, and it interesting, when I mentioned Microsoft, we then flip and kind of made it our mandate to kind of keep everything within Microsoft. And Microsoft came out with something that's called Loop, which is kind of like a stripped down version of Notion inside of Microsoft. Kinda, not quite, but kinda. So yeah, that's been so the way we do it is everything we're gonna share, everything that, like you said, everything that requires collaboration, it's in a Google Drive. Everything that's internal to our team, it's all Microsoft. And then, you know, we have, you know, the ChatGPT account and all of that. Now, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I'm super curious to see how it changes the future of SaaS, because I feel like we're going to see, I mean, we already are, similar trends to we did with like the streaming wars, where everyone wants to consolidate everything under their umbrella, so you never leave their platform, so you never leave their tool. But as we've all experienced, the all-in-one tools tend to do really well in some areas and then underperform in others. And the specialized tools that can integrate with your all-in-one might not, I don't know, the integrations are limited. It's always weighing so many pros and cons. It's hard to find the exact match.
Exactly. Anyways, tools. Let me ask you another question about AI. This is all AI, basically. Are you only using ChatGPT exclusively, or because I know you're building the GPTs that, you know, that then your clients work with you and so on. But we know that, you know, ChatGPT is one of many. You mentioned Gemini, it's one of them. I mean, we have Gemini, Claude, Perplexity. I'm a Perplexity lover, but I use the other ones just as much. So I'm curious to hear, you know, what, are you exclusive, or do you use them in different ways?
Yeah, that's another hard one, because of course they all have their strengths and weaknesses, but I don't want to overload my team with 10 different tools that they go to anytime they need to write a LinkedIn post or something. So I've been firmly camp ChatGPT for the past couple of years. I have dabbled and tested all the others, especially as new models come out or new features. I'm really excited to try Claude Skills, actually. I haven't been able to get into that yet. But lately, there have been a series of issues and just fundamental changes to GPT's business that make me less of a fan. The first was that in building my custom GPTs, you know, General Motors would hire me to create a GPT for them, hypothetically. I wish. If they hired me to create a GPT and I created General Motors GPT on my account, if I uploaded their brand guidelines, a lot of content that specifically mentions their brand name, OpenAI changed their usage policy this summer so that I would be, if I tried to publish that GPT, even so anyone else with the link could use it, I would be disallowed from doing so unless I had explicit authorization from General Motors, a signed letter, or I'd have to connect my GPT Builder account to their website domain to say I am authorized to create a GPT in their likeness using their copyrighted materials.
Okay.
That they don't actually have a good pathway for that. When I wrote them about this issue, support seemed baffled as to how to help. So I've come up with
Interesting.
temporary workarounds, but it really disrupted my business. It took a lot of the public GPTs I'd already built and shared with customers, but hosted on
Clients.
my account they were no longer functional.
No,
Upsetting. Yeah, I
I'm
found my
sure.
workarounds, but it was a bit of a crisis for sure. Had a bit of a mental breakdown that week. And since then, I just noticed more trends towards capitalizing on user attention over offering real value. So there's a new feature, I forget what it's called, but essentially GPT will work overnight on the things you talked about that day and then give you a feed of continuing the thread. Hey, we talked about, cat Halloween costumes. I went ahead and did a deep research and proposed 50 new costume ideas for you, which sounds really great. Oh, wow, it's working on these tasks we
It's
talked
the
about.
agents, right? It's kind of like the new agents.
But on the other hand, it's just giving people a lot more rabbit holes to go down. And one of the bigger
Agree.
challenges I face with my contractors is teaching them discernment. Just because GPT keeps offering these suggestions, new ideas, doesn't mean you should go follow everyone. We have to focus on the
Mm-hmm.
tech. And, I still love OpenAI. I think that they're doing great things. I still use GPT daily, but I'm seeing this shift, seeing the trend, shopping on ChatGPT and the launch of their browser that has some questionable security
Atlas.
concerns. Yeah.
Yeah, I
I
read about that.
yeah, I'm trying to hedge my bets a bit more. I'm trying to learn Claude better. I have most of my custom GPTs are also projects in Claude, so I do have those options.
Balance.
But
Okay.
even within Notion, you can actually switch between different Claude, Gemini, and GPT models. So even within my Notion workspace, I can select between any three of those, and it's not
Mm-hmm.
for tokens, it's not an additional fee, it's just part of my plan. So I'm
Okay.
appreciating that now I can better compare side by side how those models would execute my prompts.
Very good. So, okay. So, for all of them, which one are you a pay subscriber for, and which ones are you not trying?
I am paid for Anthropic, for Claude, and for GPT. And then Gemini, I've never paid for, I've just dabbled with. I really love other Google tools that are so like people now know about Notebook LM, but that was flying
Oh,
under
I
the
love
radar
that one.
for a while. Yeah, amazing.
I love you. Yeah, it's amazing.
Even Google AI Studio allows
Mm-hmm.
you to, it's still Gemini, it's just a different browser or like interface, but what I
Yep.
like about it is it has that temperature dial on the right, which allows you to dial up or down its creativity, aka its ability to hallucinate. So if you want strictly completely accurate, you put it to 0. If you want to let its imagination run wild, you put it to 1. And I encourage people to experiment with that just to see how it can alter your outputs, and also to again experiment with their own prompting to try and get better results, more accurate results.
So we're almost kind of the same, with one exception. So I do not pay for Gemini. I pay for Claude. I pay for ChatGPT, but I definitely pay for Perplexity. That is my right now is my favorite. And you said it perfectly. They all serve me in different ways, and they're all better at different things. So I'm right there with you. ChatGPT for the GPTs is great for certain things.
Mm-hmm.
My go-to is that one. I love so there's two things I love about Perplexity. It's almost kind of like completely replaced for me the need to use Google, not for everything, but for most things that require a lot of research.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, as an agency, it's helped me sort through. It does a lot of the heavy lifting on a lot of like the competitors, the market, the market research. So for that reason, I love Perplexity. And I specifically really, really love Perplexity new browser, Comet. I have been working with it for the past week and it is amazing. So paying for Perplexity is well worth it. For Perplexity, I actually have, one account for my team and one account for my private usage. And same, like we have projects inside of it, so they have specific knowledge of different things that we want to work on. And I do the same in Claude and ChatGPT. But those are the ones that we are using for writing, for research, not the only ones, right? Like I've been always pretty open about, my usage of AI. And you talk ChatGPT, 2023, I was using, I'm sure many were using AI tools well before 2023 when they became mainstream.
Yeah.
When
like with Jasper and
exactly.
Yeah.
There was, the early stages were Jasper and RYRT, right? That's how it's something like that. There was a couple of other like fantastic tools for their time, right, in the market. So I've been using them, for a lot longer than 2023. But then now, we use them in so many different ways, right? It's not just the ChatGPT. I mean, for you, I get it because you're mostly branding, copywriting. We do all digital marketing basically, right? So for us, we are using them for video, for audio, and we're doing different things with clients, to take advantage of all those tools and make their lives easier and certainly our lives.
I'm curious, which video generation tools do you like best specifically for clients, not just for making a fun Sora video or something?
Yeah, so we are using HeyGen to create client avatars. And my avatar, I mean, when I say we test them on ourselves and then we pass that on to our clients, right? So I love doing podcasts, but sitting in front of a camera has not been my favorite thing in this world. It is weird. I talk about that a lot. I say, I much rather do this than sit in front of a camera and, talk to myself, basically, because that's how it feels. So we found, for me, this works really well for us to create authentic content. But then I have my digital avatar that helps us create extra content for Instagram. And, we're doing a series of 50 things to know about marketing. And I don't want to sit down and have to record 50 things.
Sure.
So, I have recorded these different avatars of me, and we're rotating and doing that sequence where I don't have to be the one. Like I help, we sit down, we brainstorm what these 50 things we want to talk about are. And it's a series of like 10 about marketing, 10 about AI in marketing, it's just 10 about web. So it's a nice variety of different things that I want to cover, but I don't want to necessarily spend a ton of time creating them, sitting in front of the camera and, all of that. So that's one usage. We also have, we use another one, I can't think of the name right this second, that helped us then do the sort of like, we do my avatar and then my voice, which, by the way, one of the funniest things that came out of it is, I have my Spanish accent because I was born in Colombia, and the funny part with the AI avatar is that it loses the accent.
Oh, does it?
It does.
Huh, I don't know.
So my husband thinks it's hilarious, right? Because it's like, it's so weird to hear your voice without your accent. And I'm like, hilarious. I don't know. Sure.
Can I ask, when you post that content, are you explicitly stating that it was generated with AI, or do you not?
Depends on the content. Short videos, not really. They're 30 seconds max, a minute. Everything that's long form is this, the podcast. And then if we're doing anything longer than, say, a minute, then yes, we will say, something about this was created with my my avatar. Somebody that does it actually really well. This is this guy in YouTube that creates a lot of content, and almost all of his long form content now is with his AI avatar, which is super cool. And he'll start talking and he'll cut and he say, by the way, I am my AI avatar, and well, my avatar is talking about this, the real person is helping the real people, right? So it's a really good way of positioning, why you're using the avatar instead of doing it yourself. And I think honestly, that is a valid way of, to me, that's a really good way of using it. You're still putting out and his content, it's amazing every time. So it's not garbage. It's not, a GPT created content. It's like really good content. And it's always new content about some new technology or some new news release or something new to the market. But instead of him doing it, his avatar is the one doing the talking, and then he's doing all the, and I'm sure, and that's how we're kind of using it. So the avatar is the little bubble at the bottom, and then there is screen sharing and B-rolls that complement the avatar. So it's not just the avatar, there is useful content along with the avatar. So and that's kind of how we want to do it, not just for ourselves but for everybody else. And so that's one. And then we use another AI to help us sort of like build the B-rolls for all of these videos.
Nice. No, I think that's the way to do it, because I don't think people care as much as we think, or certainly not as much as we thought a year ago, whether something is real or AI generated. I think they care when they feel tricked, when they feel lied to. And so
I think it's as long as you're transparent about it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Is the way I see it, right? Mm-hmm. As long as you're transparent and you're not hiding it, but there is that's why I said it earlier. I think it's okay to use AI when you are still providing useful content, right? You're still creating, let's call it net new content, right? It's not copying, it's not reusing. And it is fair to sometimes reuse, right? Like, I mean, we're all going to reuse in one way or the other, but as long as it's a genuine form of you creating content that's useful for the people that you are trying to target with it. And what I mean by that, I mean, if you're doing, let's go with the AI avatar. If we, the one that I was explaining earlier, where he puts out a lot of really useful content, right? Obviously, he's getting that from the news and all the releases that are coming out from all of these different newsletters, websites, but he's still providing new content and because the way I see it is most people don't necessarily go and find all those newsletters that I'm subscribed to. You're probably subscribed to a lot of them too, because we want to know what's happening with AI. We want to know what's happening with marketing, but our clients, they don't have time for that. Right? So that's me gathering all that information, right, from different sources, and then putting it into content, and then my clients and my, target audience can understand without having to go look for it. And it's not necessarily going to, affect them directly, to the point where they're going to go look for that information. They just want to know that little bit, and kind of the top level, not the very specific details that you and I would probably need for everyday, in day-to-day operations. I have another question for you, because we all understand agencies, right? Marketing agencies, different. There's many different kinds of agencies, but you refer to yours as micro agency. Explain it, because I don't think a lot of people kind of understand the difference between just an agency and micro agency.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I just wouldn't consider myself a full-blown agency. It's myself, my partner, Eileen Zajac, phenomenal GPT whisperer, I call her. And then we have about 6 contractors right now all over the world. I've been starting to think of us more like a cooperative than like a micro agency. Because the thing that prevented me from scaling my business for so long was this idea that, well, if I go from freelance to agency, then I have to manage all these people, then I need to hire XYZ, then I thought that I had to fit into a certain box, that I had to build my business a certain way. And building out the systems, organizing myself so it made it easier to delegate was all I needed to scale as much as I have in the past year. Have built trusted relationships with these contractors, these immediate 8 that I work with day in and day out, but I have a much broader network beyond that of specialists that I tap for specific projects. And I didn't want the overhead of a full-blown agency. I didn't want to spend the bulk of my time managing people rather than doing the strategic creative work I love. And I didn't want, I don't know, I worked in a lot of startups, as I said, where they cultivate this sense that, I don't know, everyone's working late even though you can leave whenever you like, and everyone's drinking the Kool-Aid and selling their soul to the company. And I just didn't want that. I recognize that we're all our own people. We all have our own agendas and our professional aspirations. And if we can collaborate for a time and I can help you work towards yours while I work towards mine, great. Like, that's all I need. So I call it a micro agency, or now sort of a cooperative, because I'm less concerned with, finding employees who will buy into my vision and stick around for this long and squeezing every penny out of them after I've trained them, and much more concerned with creating an environment where we're all doing work that we love, that we feel energized, we can grow with. So I'm still figuring out how all that works. I'm fairly new to managing so many people, but I really like the systems that we have in place and the rapport that we have. I feel just seeing my contractors share resources with and ask one another for advice is really, that makes me so happy. That's the kind of work culture I want to create.
All right, I'm going to close it out with one last question. Looking ahead, let's look at next year, 18 months. What innovations in AI, automation, and obviously digital marketing excite you the most? And what risks to business owners should we be prepared for, that you see or that you're expecting, in that time frame?
Yeah, that's a big question. The risks feel the most obvious because they're constantly top of mind for me. Just because, as I saw with the OpenAI example I gave this summer, I thought my whole line of toolmates, my AI branded bots, was out the window because this broke in such a fundamental way. I wasn't sure I'd be able to use it. So I caution everyone to not hitch your star to any one tool, to always be thinking of how those tools are transferable across different LLMs, across different AI tools, to stay abreast of these developments, even if you aren't signing up for every new tool that comes on the market. I think we're going to see, I'm very curious what AI agents are going to do to the internet as we know it. I feel people talk about how we're setting ourselves up for an internet that humans won't even visit, that's just going to be for bots to go and scour information for us. And I think that that's dangerous because, the internet is the modern day forum. It's like our public gathering place.
It's a database too, right?
Yeah.
It's a database for sure in the human interaction. I know, I see your point.
I think that AI unleashes profound potential for human creativity and connection. But, as I illustrated with OpenAI's new features, a lot of these softwares are trying to hold people captive within their platform to create hyper personalized echo chambers, where if I have an AI algorithm that knows me and my preferences perfectly and is just going to create custom new content for me, and I don't see content created by other humans, I don't see opinions that differ from mine, I think that
Yeah, that's the danger.
So I'm concerned yet optimistic about the potential for AI to change the ways in which we engage, because as much as I see these companies converging towards this echo chamber future, I see so many people using these tools for incredibly creative, connective, empowering purposes. And I hope that that power shifts more towards the individuals, the collective, than corporate control when it comes to shaping our technological future.
Awesome. Well, Hillary, thank you so much for coming out and spending this last hour with us with all your insights and your knowledge of AI, marketing, branding.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a joy.
Yes. We'll look forward to maybe hosting you again in the future. Thank you, everyone, for listening. We'll see you in the next episode. Take care.
Bye.